I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I'm joined by the G-Man, if I can call you that, down at Aspinall's in Mayfair. Good lunch with Francis Warren, Moses Itauma, and also Sam Noakes.
Yeah, very, very good, very interesting, always interesting. Sam Noakes came in the studio with his brother Sean into Talk Sport for an hour the other day. They're so competitive together. And Sam told a brilliant story about his mum Sharon as well. I've never heard a boxer say, my mum will probably looking forward to seeing me get a clatter. But really looking forward to meeting his family at the Copper Box on Saturday night. They sound a lot of fun. I think he's got like 3 brothers, and that might be Moses. But there's a lot of brothers and sisters going on between Moses Itauma and Sam Noakes anyway. But lovely lunch with those guys. Always great to sit in an informal setting, or very formal setting here at Aspinall's in Mayfair, but informally over lunch. Learning about Moses, about his rugby days where there were 10, 12-year-olds trying to jump on top of him to bring him down on the rugby pitch, where he was shaving at the age of 10, all that kind of bull, and shooting the shit with him, and him being a striker in football when he was younger, all that stuff that, as we said, there's no I in team. He doesn't really like team stuff, and he says there's a me in team, and always nice to learn those kind of things about a young fighter. And the more I meet Moses Itauma, the more impressed I am about how seriously he's taking this journey. I had a long chat with him today about going to America and going to Oakland and visiting Virgil Hunter and going to Los Angeles and going in the Wildcard gym with Freddie Roach and going to Gleason's in New York and going to Miami and in and out of the gyms there in Vegas. I mean, these young guys, what was he, 19?
Moses, 18 or 19, yeah.
It's incredible, really. He's so mature for his age. And also, you sit and chat to him and you put the camera on and he gets a little bit more nervous. But when we're talking to him informally without the camera on, he really wants to learn. And he's clearly learnt a lot already, running out of school, in his blazer, getting changed quickly, going sparring with Joe Joyce and all the rest of them. The only one he hasn't really sparred with is Tyson Fury. He's a superb young man, and you try and pass on what you can in terms of them learning their journey of maybe going to their what is the equivalent of him going to university by going away in the holidays to all these places in America, learning the different styles. Yeah, absolute delight. Great for Francis to invite a few of us here today. It's something I talk about a lot, that it's not always appreciated by your 780. I always do this. Your 786. Is it 786?
I think you know more than me at this point.
Whatever it is, 784,000 subscribers, the people that love your videos that you do with everyone in the boxing world, is that, we have a lot of relationships with the people behind the scenes, and getting to know young fighters coming up is very important. And it's nice being in an informal atmosphere with them where we're away from fights, because it's big fight week, events at Talk Sport tonight, workouts tomorrow and press conference and so on, all the formal activities. So it's nice that Francis has brought them to swanky Mayfair for, just to spoil them for a few minutes and just have a few bespoke interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. And 2 key guys to get to know for the future as well. Sam Noakes is 10-0 with 10 knockouts, looking to continue the 100% knockout streak this Saturday. And
Go on, Francis.
What's that?
I was just saying.
Got to pull up a chair.
I was just saying.
We're talking about Sam and Moses.
Well, you've got the right man. Yeah, take a stick. We're recording at the moment. I was just saying how people, the 784,000 subscribers on IFL TV, often don't see these moments where, we had a serious chat earlier on about, kind of informally, about how important the relationships are between the media and the fighters, and to speak to Moses, who's quite shy when the camera goes on him, but to learn about his days playing football and rugby and how he feels and be able to share things with him. Like I was saying to him, he should visit all the gyms in America at this age, go on fortnightly visits to America and do stuff. but just that relationship that you have, that we have as well over many years, you know, when you're building fighters and you're giving us the opportunity away from the set pieces of a fight week to get to learn what they're like, you know, and in a very swanky but informal setting.
Well, thank you. No, I mean, it is very important, Gareth. I mean, it's you know, it's all very well. Fight weeks are fight weeks, and they're exciting and they're buzzy and they're enthralling. But I'm not sure sometimes the fighters get the most of it because there's a lot of them there. You know, it's just you know, it's for you today. I mean, the cameras aren't rolling when you're talking to the guys, but you get to know them so that you know you can do a more in-depth interview next time you see them and things like that. You know, and they get that rapport and that trust with you as well. You know, I do think it's important.
That's what Moses was saying just now. God, I wish the cameras were rolling out there when we were sitting around having the lunch. But that comes, having those stories in the background. This is not a knocking again of Anthony Joshua, but I feel that we don't see him enough, and we don't get to spend moments in time with those guys where when you know someone well, and when you've had time with them, like hopefully we'll get to know Moses on this journey. I mean, he's extraordinary for 18, isn't he? Yeah. You actually have to pinch yourself to realise, because in 5 or 6 or 10 years' time, we're going to go, do you remember when we had that lunch at Aspinall's, when we had a sit-down? It's the first time we've had a real sit-down with him. He's a lovely kid, and he's soaking up information, and I have to keep going, remember he's 18, you know, and that, you know, he's as old as our children, if not younger than our children, my children anyway. And so you are imparting some advice because it is down to relationships at the end of the day. And I think boxing's quite unique in that way. And people maybe don't realise that on the outside because so much of, you know, the communication today on social media and those kind of things is...
It's impersonal.
And it's a jab or it's a punch and it's a counterpunch. On the way in here today, walking through Curzon Street, 2 or 3 people said, "Oh, really enjoyed your coverage on TalkSport on Saturday night," or "Love your interviews." And I'm sure you get that when you're out as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so it's saturated, isn't it? It's very, very busy boxing, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just the way it is now. So you know, to get one-on-one time like this, I think you know it's even more valuable than it was. I mean, I don't know why Ricky Hatton just sprung to mind. You know, the amount of time that I think you guys spent with Ricky coming up. You know, he wasn't the outgoing. You know, he was always a lovely guy when he was younger, but you know, he had a great rapport with all you guys, and it shows when you have the interviews.
There's a case in point there as well. Last week, when Amir Khan had his positive drug test and banned, he was round and about in London doing a charity event, and he came into TalkSport to speak to people. I had a sit down with him as well. He'd been used to us being on the road with him, so he wanted to talk to people. Ricky was the same. We went on the road with him then. You know, with Joe Calzaghe wasn't comfortable with it. You remember his days? He wasn't comfortable being in front of the media. Then when we went on the road with him, and it is a journey. Yeah. Carl Froch the same, actually, as well. I know he wasn't promoted by Queensberry or Sports Network as it was.
I want to do this with these guys now, not when they're British, European or world champions. Yeah. I think maybe over the years, I mean, certainly as a manager, maybe I've not done it as much as I should have done with some of the guys I worked with, say 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, I thought it was just about getting them title fights or getting them to this position or getting them to that position. But if these guys know you now, then it's not going to be like, wow, look at all this attention I'm getting from when they're 25, 26. Or hopefully Moses when he's 20 and 5 months, winning world titles. But I just want them to be used to not over-the-top attraction and not over-the-top media attention, but it is non-stop at the moment. Yeah. You can't get away from it. It's on your phone all the time. It's on, you know, you're on socials all the time. So they need to be used to it, and I want them to just not be overawed by it when it really matters. If this week, you know, Moses, for example, has got a 6-rounder. I mean, Sam Noakes, he takes it in his stride. Yeah. He's just like Mr. Chilled. But, you know, Moses is going to be, and I'm going to say, he's going to be heavyweight world champion at a very young age. So we've seen the fall from grace of previous heavyweight world champions at a very young age. I'm not going to name names, but they're, you know, around about 30 years ago. but we don't want another. We don't, you know, we can't. We don't, you know, it's my responsibility to make sure that this guy takes it in his stride, enjoys every second of it, and yeah, he gets the media attention he deserves, but not unwanted crap from people when he's up there. He's got nice, decent people around him who he trusts, and that includes you guys because you are all part of the journey.
He doesn't even know he's fighting on Saturday night, so he's pretty chilled out.
I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. He's from the Ukraine.
Right, I don't know whether I need to leave this interview now, or but I'll let you ask a few questions.
I'm not paying you for this, Gareth.
No.
Really? Huh? Yeah, definitely not. Check got lost in the post. We can. Can I ask you actually whilst here? I was going to interview you anyways, Francis, about away from Sam and Moses, obviously on a big card this Saturday night live on BT Sport on the Joy Sang on the card, about the rest of your guys that you're managing, and also a bit about Champion Sports. So if you just want to talk about both in the same breath.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Freezy on Saturday as well. Freezy McBones, Seth Guillermo.
Freezy McBones. No, you didn't make that one up.
No, I didn't. No, I can't take the credit for that. No, he's a Ghanaian national. He's been here for quite a while in the UK, working as a chef, and he's got a great media social following. And actually, Mauricio Sullivan sent me a video and said, "You should sign this guy. He's the next Mike Tyson." And I'm not. I think Moses is the next Mike Tyson, but Freezy's definitely the first Freezy.
It's the first name I looked at when I saw that list at the works out. I don't know Freezy McBones. I'm looking forward to this.
He's a fun guy to watch.
He's not a Misfits then, no?
No. He's a fun guy to watch, and but he's fighting on Saturday. I think give him a little shout out. But it's as far as the rest of the guys that I'm working with. Sean Noakes, Sam's brother, Carol Itauma. They're both fighting on the 12th of May. Pierce O'Leary is the WBC International Super Lightweight Champion, who's going to be a world champion without a doubt. He's absolutely phenomenal talent. He's going to fight on Mick Conlon's undercard on the 27th. Henry Turner, Dennis McCann. I genuinely think I've got the best group of young fighters, definitely in Europe, if not further afield. I really believe that individually some of these guys are going to go and do massive, massive things. And although it's not the be-all and end-all, every single one of them, down to a man, is an absolute gent and a pleasure to work with. As far as Champion Sports goes, I just felt that when you find your niche in this crazy sport of ours, you've got to grab it with both hands. I've been through 20 years of education in boxing, whether it's promotions or media or PR and online sales. When we were the original online company, FrankWarren.tv, and I ran that. I think Enzo, it was one Enzo Mac fight week with David Hay. I think we got over 3 million hits, and back in the day when hits meant hits, not it wasn't about views and things.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Nearly 12. When was Macaroni Hay?
2008.
Yeah. Bombs away.
15
it was.
years ago. Yeah.
So having been
2 a.m. at the O2 Arena.
Yeah,
I mean, there were some people asleep. It was so late.
Yeah, but they woke up.
They woke up. It didn't last long.
No, it didn't. Enzo wasn't very well. That's what we put that down to.
Now, David Hay conned everyone. He was struggling at the weight, I think,
He was
in the previous
phenomenal
fight with Jean-Marc Mormac.
I was at that in Paris.
Yeah, in Paris. I remember being at that, and
the ropes helped him that night, and he got up.
He was like Bambi on ice.
And he came back after getting up from that, and I thought, Enzo got a tough night, but he couldn't do it. But it wasn't to be for Enzo. Just for me, I just thought that I just enjoyed a one-on-one management with the guys, and getting to spend real quality time with them. It's what it's why I get up and why I do this. I'm involved in this sport. I'm not a spreadsheet guy. I'm not, and it's a very, very television orientated sport now, isn't it? It's not probably not as it's very blue chip now, put it that way. And I prefer to be out in the gyms and with the guys and managing their career and advising them on the best and the best routes to take, getting their commercial deals, their sponsorship deals, picking the right fights for them and moving them on at the right time.
It's not the easiest thing to do anymore as well, because of the lack of impatience that exists in the world. And obviously it's something I've spoken to your dad about so many times. He is about building fighters, spotting fighters, and so is Bob Arum actually. And obviously your father and Bob Arum have an amazing relationship at the moment, as promoters do. They have an amazing relationship. They've been rivals in the past, but there is a lack of patience in the world about that process of building. So I imagine that's something that you have to just be very firm about with all these guys. No, it's a building process. I'm not going to throw you in too early. Opportunities come, but it's so important. It's a different algorithm to mixed martial arts and other sports. That, for example, someone like Moses Itauma, you've got to go through a 2-year build with him, and if he's not ready, you won't put him in. I assume.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, he's very adamant that he wants to try and break this Mike Tyson record. And
It's a great PR move.
That's if everything goes to plan.
Yeah,
It's. I believe he can do it. Obviously, it depends on the landscape. I mean, there's some fighters. We were talking, weren't we, at lunch about some of the current crop of, or the next crop of heavyweights to come through. I'd include Dubois in that. Obviously, Usyk's there, but you're not sure if Fury and Joe Joyce will be around in 2-3 years' time. Or Joshua.
Jared Anderson will be around.
But Jared Anderson, Hrgovic, those guys, and some of those guys, Moses ranks very high. But Jalavov, Murad Aliyev, some of those guys he rates very, very highly. There's a Kazakh as well who just won the world. I'm not going to pronounce his name, but there are some. Who's the South African kid that Matchroom just signed? Not South African, Australian kid, Justice Hooney.
Yes,
he's not a bad fighter either. So there are some. There's the Ukrainian who's based in Canada. There's some really decent heavyweights around. Moses ranks some of them highly. Doesn't rank some of them at all. So it depends who's thereabouts in 2 years, 5 months.
He reckons he could beat most of them right now.
He does.
That's a good attitude.
But that's a great confidence. It's great confidence.
Attitude.
And can he, as his manager, you believe that?
Yeah, but we're not going to find out for 2 years. There's no way he's getting put into anything that he's not ready. He might think he's ready for it, and it's not a case of being ready for it. It's a case of having the best preparation. If he thinks that in January 2025 we get an eliminator, if the guy who's potentially in the opposite corner, it doesn't have to be 100% banker. But what wouldn't happen is he gets to a situation where it goes wrong and it ruins his whole career. What's for one night or for 6 months worth of, be patient for another 6 months. Okay, you didn't break Mike Tyson's record, but you might be a world champion at 21 instead of 20 and a half. He's still going to get huge, huge respect and admiration and accolade, whether he's 21, 22 or 23.
Francis, just a couple of things before I let you go. Away from Moses, we're going to have plenty of conversations about Moses over the years, don't you, about that, Francis? In terms of brother, Carol, obviously a major setback last time. So we know he's out on May 12th at your call, which is good to see. But how is he and what went wrong on that night, Francis?
I don't want to make excuses. I mean, fair play to Moderna. He turned up and unfortunately Carol had a bad night at the office. I think Moderna had his standout performance he's ever going to have, and Carol just got it wrong on the night. Behind closed doors, we've had conversations, and we both agreed that, and as I say to all of my guys, if you have a bad night at the office, just shake the other guy's hand and work it out behind closed doors. We don't want excuses. We want to get to the root causes in training, and we'll put them right. I believe we've identified a couple of issues, and they've been resolved, and you'll see Carol back out in an 8-rounder. It's not a rebuild job, it's just a slight setback, And he'll be fine. He'll be fine, and I generally believe he can go on and fight for decent titles and become a big name in the sport.
Bernard Hopkins lost his first fight, didn't he?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, there's so many. It wasn't his first fight, Carol's first fight, but I think there is a stigma that shouldn't be there about people losing fights in boxing.
It's the Floyd effect, though, really, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's a great marketing tool being undefeated, isn't it? But it's the next performance that really counts, and it's how he comes back from it.
Yeah, I mean, Cleverly, for example, I remember when he got beat by Kovalev, and I said, you don't ever want to feel like this. And then you remember Cleverly fought. My brain's gone today. The Polish kid over in the States. And it was just I think Nathan got beat on points, but he knew how to tough it out and stick it out for that, because he said Kovalev, he said got hit a couple of times, he just thought, oh my God, I don't think he was ready for it. No. Then he goes over to the States and he had life and death with the Polish guy, and it was just a nuts performance. And his nose was split in 6 different places. It was unbelievable. Carol now has that genuine experience, sporting and life experience, to know how it feels to get beat. So what I've said to him, number one, is if there's ever doubt in your mind up to fight week where there's an injury or an illness or anything like that, then you tell me and we'll make a decision. You don't just try and fiddle your way through it, which is what you tried to do in fight night.
From Farah it was, wasn't it?
From Farah.
No, Bremer.
No, it was from Farah. It was from Farah. Andres from far.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable ball. I know he got beat, but it was unbelievable ball. You know, and you know what
Was
I'm
that
trying
on
to.
the undercard of Mayweather and...
No, it was a 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. It was a real strange one.
2015, it was a long time ago.
But what my point is that I genuinely believe that Cleverley's result against Kovalev, managing mentally and physically prepared to go into the trenches, and I think Carroll having that setback this early in his career, it may be a blessing in disguise. Because I'd rather it happen his 10th fight than his 20th fight. Because just to keep hold of an O.
Can I ask a couple of things, which we also... heavyweight questions.
No, just ask one more thing on Francis Stable before we come on to that. I didn't want to come on to that, but just on Dennis McCann and I know Baluta. Obviously, a cracking fight for your man Baluta against Kane last time. Spoke to your dad about it. He said that Andrew wants to activate the rematch. So, what is the situation with that, firstly? And could we see Dennis McCann in with the winner of that rematch?
We'll have to, as far as I know, Andrew's he broke his hand. That's what he told everybody after the fight. So we'll have to see. You know, it's injury permitting, I suppose. If he's got a broken hand, he's not going to be out before September, is he? I know Dennis wants us to. You know, Dennis wants to fight. Baluta's told me over the weekend that he wants to fight with Dennis as well. So you know, it's there to be made, and you know, I think. You know, any way that sort of that plays out, I think they're going to be good fights. I think it's a great fight for both Dennis and I in it, though. I really do.
I refuse to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,